Did the Raiders or do the Raiders need a veteran wide receiver, or will their offense be A-OK? That plus more on Thursday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for May 8th, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. We definitely appreciate you. If you're catching the show wherever you find your favorite podcast, or you're checking us out by way of the YouTube page, you know we appreciate both. The show grows each and every day because of your consistent support and the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes on the YouTube page, making sure we look good and sound good each and every day. We shout him out. We appreciate him. If you want to do that as well, or give him a follow, you can hit him up on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, you know we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line at 707-654-4693. And as we traditionally do, we'll close out the show hearing from you. Calls, texts, a lot of great feedback. We'll get as much in as possible coming up in segment number 3. Segment number 2, we're going to continue to deep dive on the Raiders offense and think about where we were at this stage of the game last year. And when I mean we, I mean me, you, Raider Nation, right? The media talking about the Raiders offense, and where we are now talking about the Raiders offense and how it's night and day. That's coming up in segment number 2. Here in segment number 1, just news and notes really around the National Football League. We'll jump right into it after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that's Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create the account, use promo code LOCKEDONNFL. It's all one word for $20 off your first purchase. So on Wednesday, we found out about a trade going down the National Football League, a trade between the Dallas Cowboys and the Pittsburgh Steelers, and this was for George Pickens. He was a member of the Steelers, now a member of the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys send the Steelers a 2026 third round pick and a 2027 fifth round pick, and the Steelers send George Pickens and a 2027 sixth round pick back to Big D. But he's on the last year of his rookie deal. There's no extension expected as of right now. He's going to play out this year in Big D before any of that plays out. Now, the thing about it, and the reason I bring it to the table, is once the deal went down and Pittsburgh made the trade with Seattle to go get DK Metcalf, many people believed that that meant George Pickens was on his way out. George Pickens was on social media hinting that he was on his way out, and many members of Raider Nation said, hey, that's a big playmaker right there. The Raiders should go get him and add him to the mix and make him part of that Raiders arsenal. We heard from Shireen Williams from Pro Football Talk on Wednesday as well on the show. She was on my radio show earlier in the week, and she was saying she thought that the Raiders needed to go and get a veteran wide receiver to add to the mix. But was George Pickens the right guy to add to the mix? Jerry Dulac, who's from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, has been covering the Pittsburgh Steelers for a very, very long time. He was actually on my radio show, Joe and Q on ESPN Radio, when that trade happened. We had him on. He was talking about it. It wasn't very long after that. Here's what he had to say about the guy, George Pickens, the wide receiver that the Dallas Cowboys just got. We know that the Steelers traded for DK Metcalf. That was a second-round pick. Now they get a third in return for George Pickens. Was that the plan all along, was to, after they acquired Metcalf, to move on from Pickens?
Yeah, there's no question about it. George Pickens was never going to get a second contract with the Steelers. It's just going to be a matter of when that move was made. I'll be honest, I was just a little surprised that it was right now. I thought they would go into the season, with a double-barreled receiving duo, see how much they could tolerate George Pickens, and then, maybe find a desperate team or team in contention that lost a receiver, make a trade, maybe get lucky and get a number 2. But I think what it points up, fellas, is the Steelers, desire to rid themselves of a receiver who just creates one headache after another. It's been a problem with his other teammates. It's been a problem with Coach Mike Tomlin. They've just become less and less tolerant of his behavior, and I think it just points up how quickly they were willing to get rid of him and not even have to deal with it any longer.
Jerry, you've covered the Steelers a long time. At the same time, this is not the first time the Steelers have dealt with a wide receiver who's brought some problems to the locker room. Antonio Brown might be the most famous one. They did a really nice job of keeping that quiet for a while. How bad was this relationship between Pickens and the Steelers?
Well, I mean, George Pickens had these issues coming out of the draft, and as talented as he is, it's the reason why he lasted to the second round. No, I know he had some. If people want to say he had some injury concerns, but he came back and played from that injury. But the problem is taking these kinds of guys, and so but in Antonio Brown's case. Fellas, for 5 years I did a weekly radio show with Antonio Brown, and I liked the kid. But what the Steelers saw happen with Antonio Brown was him change when he got the money. George Pickens never even got the money other than his rookie deal, and he was this way. Imagine how he would be if he got a second contract from them. It'd probably be somewhat insufferable.
So Jerry Dulac right there, very as a matter of fact, never was going to get a second deal. How long they can tolerate him. These are the words that he was using. Desperate team, creates one headache after the other. AB went down after getting the money. Pickens hasn't even got the money yet. So clearly sounded like he was a guy that when we talk about what Pete Carroll and company are trying to do with the Raiders and we talk about culture, he's not a guy that was going to fit with the Raiders culture. He's not a guy that, you want to add into that locker room when they're trying to establish something with the silver and black. Can he be a really good wide receiver? Sure. Was what they're giving up for him a whole lot? Maybe, but if he, is motivated because he's going into a contract year, maybe it turns out being a big deal. But the other thing is, are they going to be able to sign him? Right, because he's going to try to play this year out, try to have a big year, and hope that some team, whether it's the Cowboys or other, wants to pay him as a big-time wide receiver, not a number 2, but a true number 1. That money might become a little rich. So for my money, I think it made a lot of sense for the Raiders to stay away from that situation. Now, there's another veteran wide receiver that's out there and available and was made available on Wednesday, and that's Gabe Davis. The Jacksonville Jaguars, they released him last offseason. He signed a 3-year, $39 million contract, and he only played in 10 games with Jacksonville, had 20 catches for 239 yards. Now, you're probably thinking, well, why in the hell would the Raiders want him? Yeah, that was a bad season in 2024 in Jacksonville. But the year before in Buffalo, 45 catches, 746 yards, 7 touchdowns, played 17 games. 2022 in Buffalo, 48 catches, 836 yards, 7 touchdowns, played in 15 games. So you kind of know who Gabe Davis is. He's a guy who's going to give you 45 to 50 catches, probably around 700-some yards, and, about 7 touchdowns, right? Probably play anywhere between 15 to 17 games. Obviously, 2024 was a down year. He's out there available. Keenan Allen's out there available. Amari Cooper's out there available. Again, I bring this up because Shereen Williams suggested that, after June 1st, the Raiders go and bring a veteran wide receiver into the mix. So on my radio show, I asked Raider Nation what they thought. Do you think Gabe Davis would be a good addition just as another veteran body, a guy that could take a little bit of pressure off of a young guy, a rookie like Jack Besh, a second-round pick out of TCU? And everybody that I talked to said, I think Jack Besh is going to be the guy. Even national analysts that were on the show. I had my guy Max Toscano on the show as well, talking about the offense, and we talked about what he had to say about the Raiders offense on Wednesday's show here on the podcast. And he said, I think Jack Besh is going to slide right in. Right? Justin Mello from the Draft Network does a really good job. He said, I think Jack Besh is going to slide right in. So for the most part, everyone that I've talked to so far has said, I don't really think that they need a veteran wide receiver. I think Jack Besh is going to slide into that role and be really effective for the Raiders moving forward. So, of course, I'll throw it out there to you. Do you believe that the Raiders need a veteran wide receiver, whether it's a Gabe Davis, whether it's a Keenan Allen, whether it's a Amari Cooper, whoever you think that other could be? Let me know your thoughts on that, 707-654-4693. Of course, I'll get those calls and texts coming up in segment number 3. But wanted to pass that information along because it did happen on Wednesday. And again, George Pickens was the guy that many people in Raider Nation hit me up and said the Raiders should be actively pursuing him, trying to bring him into the mix. Obviously, they didn't. The Cowboys got him. And now a guy like Gabe Davis is available as well. But sounds like from what I've heard so far, the feedback, everyone's pretty comfortable with what the Raiders have going for them moving forward when it comes to the offense. Matter of fact, speaking of the offense, we'll deep dive a little bit more on that Raiders offense coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before I get to that, though, I do want to tell you about our title sponsor of the show today, and that is Gametime. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Gametime, you can be part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Gametime makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app, they actually go down as the tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. That's right, 60% last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever the case may be. Plus, they have all-in pricing, meaning no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you get and is what you pay. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the app, create the account, use promo code LOCKEDONNFL. It's all one word for $20 off your first purchase. The terms do apply. Again, create the account, use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. I want to continue to deep dive on the Raiders offense. I was actually going to bring to the table the interview I did with Max Toscano talking all things Raiders offense. We'll save that for tomorrow's show because I thought it was really good stuff. You really want to hear it. And again, it just kind of goes with the theme that we've had. But it just got me thinking when I talked to Max on my radio show on Wednesday, it got me thinking about where the Raiders were at this time in 2024 to where we all are right now in 2025. Before I deep dive into that, I did want you to hear what Pro Football Focus had to say about the Raiders offense. Check it out.
Pete Carroll kind of resetting the culture after everything that's gone on the last 2 or 3 years in Vegas. So I think that's what he's trying to do. And I do think this offense, and despite them being in an absolutely loaded division with these other 3 teams, this is going to be a fun offense to watch. Geno Smith, Ashton Ginty, pretty good offensive line. Bowers, Besh, Myers, maybe Dante Thornton works his way in there. They're going to score some points. It's just a matter of if they're going to be in a lot of shootouts and they're going to make enough stops to win games. But the Raiders are going to be fun to watch this year. And even if they end up again in 4th place in this division, they're going to be among the most fun 4th place teams to watch. I think they're going to be a threat to anybody with this offense.
So again, just more evidence of people on the national scene taking a look at the Raiders and saying, I kind of like what they got going on. I think they're going to be pretty good. They talked about right there in a 35-second clip, Carroll reset the culture. Fun offense to watch. Genty, Geno Smith, Bowers, Besh, Thornton, offensive line pretty good, right? A threat to anyone with this offense. Like, when's the last time we had a conversation and we were talking about the Raiders offense like this, right? I know I went into great detail on it on Wednesday's show, but it really caught my attention when I heard that. When I heard that description, when I talked to Shireen, when I talked to Max, when I've talked to so many people on the national scene, and I feel blessed that I get this opportunity, and everyone to a T for the most part says, this offense is going to be good. Now, I don't know what it means as far as wins because the division's tough. Every team got better in the division. The Chiefs are still there. They've been dominant for so long. But this team is going to be fun to watch, led by the offense. So then it got me thinking on my radio show on Wednesday, and I went on a little bit of a rant, and I don't mind doing that every once in a while. That's how I roll. Thinking about where the Raiders were in 2024 at this time. Well, Luke Getsy was the offensive coordinator. What were we saying? Well, was the problem in Chicago Luke Getsy? Was the problem in Chicago Justin Fields? Well, Luke Getsy's got a lot to prove. Luke Getsy's going to have to show that he understands what he's doing. Luke Getsy's going to have to put together an offense. He was a conversation that we had on this podcast for, it felt like months, right? Not knowing what he was going to bring to the table. Luke Getsy. Another question we had, running back 1, could Zamir White fill the void of Josh Jacobs? Well, he did good the last 4 games of the 2023 season. Maybe he can go ahead and fill that void. Maybe he could be that guy. He's ready. He's been working out, right? He's been in Georgia on the farm with his horses. Look how big he is. He's ready for that workload. But it was so much unknown, right? Because it was a 4-game sample size. That's all that we really saw at the end of the season in 2023 when, well, things went really well for him. Obviously, that last game that he played really well against Kansas City when they won on Christmas Day, as a matter of fact, in 2023, that was his big game. And really, it was a couple big runs at the end of the game that really helped put him where he was. But that was the conversation. Can they fill the void of not having Josh Jacobs? Who's the quarterback going to be? What's the quarterback competition going to look like in training camp, right? It's going to be a real competition. Remember, these are all things I said. I'm not mocking anyway. I'm mocking me because this is what I was saying, at this time in 2024, right? Is it going to be Gardner Minshew? Is it going to be Aiden O'Connell? Well, both guys have proven that they can win games, right? I think it's going to be, Aiden O'Connell because, well, he's got the familiarity with Antonio Pierce already. And Gardner Minshew is going to be really good insurance. Like, remember how much of that conversation we had? Who's it going to be? Why is it going to be this guy? How much we went back and forth? And then obviously when it went into the season, well, if they had started the season with Aiden O'Connell, he would have done better. Well, if they had done this, that, and the third, would have done, you know what I mean? Like, it was so much conversation about what was going to happen at the quarterback position. Nobody has taken the bull by the horns in training camp. No one's just taken that job and said, hey, I'm QB1. Nobody did it. right? And there was questions about that. Can Devontae Adams and Brock Bowers be a really good 1-2 punch? I think everyone felt really good that they could. We knew how that shook out, right? The other conversation around Devontae was, is he even going to make it out throughout the whole year on the roster? Remember Greenberg on ESPN, Mike Greeny, talking about, oh, he's going to be a Jet by Halloween. I tried to bet him that wasn't going to happen. Glad I didn't bet him because it did happen, right? And so he ended up becoming a malcontent, right? Who was the starting offensive line going to be? Who was going to be the five, right? How quickly can they come together? There were so many questions that we had that felt like it took forever to either answer or never got answered. So now you fast forward to where we are right now in 2025. Rookie minicamp hasn't happened. That's actually going to start tomorrow, right? Mandatory minicamp hasn't happened. Training camp hasn't happened. Preseason hasn't happened. So what do we know? Chip Kelly, offensive coordinator, proven, really good. He's been a head coach in the league. He's got a really good creative offense. When's the last time we talked about the Raiders having a creative offense? It wasn't under Luke Getsy. It wasn't under Josh McDaniels, even though I was trying to give him hope that he was going to be able to be that guy. He clearly wasn't, right? I think we could all agree that even Gruden 2.0 offense wasn't great, right? I mean, it's been a very long time, but Chip Kelly's proven. Chip Kelly just won a national championship as offensive coordinator at Ohio State. So he's good. He's experienced, right? They paid him a lot of money to bring him in, so clearly they believe in him. You know who the running back's going to be, running back one. You're not questioning how are you going to fill the void of Josh Jacobs. I think most of Raider Nation would probably say that they've upgraded to Ashton Genty, right? He's younger. He just came off a monster season at Boise State, right? Many will say that he should have been the Heisman Trophy winner, not the runner-up. Right? I mean, he's a home run waiting to happen. He's a guy that you feel like this team could really build around for years to come. So you're comfortable there. You know who your quarterback's going to be. It's Geno Smith. He's QB1. There's no question about that. Nobody's got to go earn the job. Now, he's still got to hold on to it. He's still got to go put his best foot forward. Of course, Aiden O'Connell's going to be there. Cam Miller's going to be there. I get that. But this is Geno Smith's job. There's no question about that. Even going into the draft, we said Geno's going to be the guy. And who knows who they're going to draft, when they're going to draft him, and how much of a threat that guy could be at some point. But Geno Smith is the guy, and there's proof of concept when it comes to Pete Carroll and Geno Smith, what they can do together. And now all of a sudden you're getting a really good offensive coordinator as well, who his offense goes as the run game goes. So all of a sudden you're seeing all this put together. And then you're excited because you saw what Brock Bowers did his rookie year. You know what Jacoby Myers was able to do last year. He dropped 0 passes. Nothing hit the ground with Jacoby Myers. And now you got this rookie in Jack Bech, second-round pick out of TCU, that everyone's really high on, that thinks that he's going to go in and make an impact immediately. Now, look, that's hoping for the trifecta to hit, right? And I still think that it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve for Jack Bech because, again, it's just not that easy to all of a sudden transition from the college game to the NFL. But the one thing I do know is wide receivers are having more success now than they did, a handful of years ago. A handful of years ago, it took a while for a wide receiver to understand the NFL game. Now, I don't know if it's because of 7-on-7. I don't know because if college is all of a sudden so wide open now, no matter what conference you're coming from. I don't know if it's because more college concepts are thrown into the mix, but it's easier for wide receivers to adapt to the NFL game and have early success. So I'm not saying Jack Bech can't do it. He's obviously got his work cut out for him. And then the offensive line. They've got to solidify the 5 guys ASAP. That's still not done, but you feel good because you have a healthy Colton Miller coming back, and I'm assuming that that's going to get itself worked out. You're putting JPJ at his most natural position, the center position, right? So you know that you have that. You know that you have guys like DJ Glaze that did a really good job at right tackle and obviously can get better, but you have him at your disposal. You have Jordan Meredith at your disposal. You have Alex Kappa that you signed at your disposal. You also picked up a couple guys in the draft at your disposal, right? So now you feel like at least the offensive line should be upgraded, right? But they've got to still put in the work to figure out who those 5 offensive linemen are going to be. And the quicker they can do that, the quicker they can all start to gel. But it's just the way that people are talking about the Raiders offense just blows my mind that, people are talking about this is going to be a fun offense to watch. And this is going to be a creative offense. Chip Kelly is going to do this, that, and the third. It's such night and day situation from where the Raiders were at this time last year, where there was so much unknown, right? And, of course, you're dealing with the head coach at the time at Antonio Pierce, who I'm not going to act like I wasn't backing him up. I was backing him up 100%. Thought that he had an opportunity to be a really good coach. Obviously, that didn't play out. but you didn't know what he was going to do as a head coach, right? Because everything was brand new. There was no proof of concept. There's proof of concept with Pete Carroll. He's been there, done that wherever he's gone. So not only do you feel comfortable about the different pieces that they have in place, the upgrades that they've made as a team, but you also feel comfortable about the head coach and what he brings to the table and the fact that he understands what practice is supposed to look like, what the film room should look like, what the competition should look like to get guys, the right guys on the field, right? I mean, he knows all of that. None of it is like, well, we got to figure this out. Well, this is all brand new. Well, I got to lean on this guy and call this guy. Now, Pete Carroll's got it all right here upstairs. He's already got there because he's been there, done that. So what he is bringing to the table is something that the Raiders haven't had in a very long time. So it just blows my mind. As I was talking to Max Toscano on my radio show, I was just like, man, when's the last time people really talked about a Raiders offense like this? So as he pointed out, going from 27th overall ranked offense like they were a year ago to being top 10, he feels very confident that that's a possibility. And that's not a possibility. That's going to happen as long as the run game gets going with Ashton Genty and that Raiders offensive line. You'll actually hear that interview that we had with Max on my radio show. You'll hear that tomorrow to close out the week really strong because, again, I think it's fantastic and a great way to send you into the weekend. So you'll hear that coming up in segment number 2, coming up on Friday's show. Coming up in segment number 3, your calls and texts. What are on your mind? What's the feedback that you've got for me? 707-654-4693. We'll close out the show today hearing from you. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about another great sponsor here on the show, and that's Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives business flexibility by connecting them with the top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Right now, you can find the right talent you need. Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivers incredible results. You can post a job free and simple. Within a day, multiple qualified candidates will be at your disposal to choose from, right? Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork will help you find affordable, top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently. Right now, all you need to do is visit Upwork.com. That's UPWORK.com. Post your job for free. Again, Upwork.com, UPWORK.com to connect with the top talent and grow your business today. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts draft that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Let's start things off with a call from Raider Jim in Pacific Northwest, calling to double down on what Raider X had to say about head coach Pete Carroll. Here he is, Raider Jim in the Pacific Northwest.
Hey, Q, and hello, Raider Nation. It's Raider Jim from the Pacific Northwest. And Raider Nation, you have to feel good. So good about what the Silver and Black are doing now. And Q, you and your audience know I've been a fan for so very, very, very long, but I'm thrilled with what Spytek and Carroll are doing. And I don't think I've ever been so excited as a Raider fan. I also wanted to piggyback onto what Raider X conveyed regarding Pete Carroll and Rich Eisen's thoughts on his show about maybe 5 days ago. Yes, I know Eisen is on Raider Nation Radio, weekdays from 10 to 12, but I think Raider Nation should check out those important comments. I mean, they could be accessed, as Raider X noted, on YouTube as well. It was about 5 days ago, and you can search for it as why the Raiders made a smart move in hiring Pete Carroll as head coach. Now, Q, I'm a diehard Trojan fan, and I'm an ever-admiring fan of Pete Carroll here in Seattle. I am so delighted Mark did the right thing for Raider Nation. Coach Pete is such an amazing guy in so many ways. I mean, the players want to be heard. They want their concerns validated. As competitors, they want to win. And Carroll is an active mentor for, those things and in that regard. So I want to echo what Raider X shared earlier, and every Raider fan should give that a listen or a watch on YouTube if they have the time. More to the point, what do winners like Pete Carroll and Coach Belichick have in common? They're totally different, right? But they remain stoics at heart. They remain consistent in their approach, albeit they're very different. And what do I mean by this? it highlights an article I read in SI many years ago now that resonates with any football fan. It was an article by Greg Bishop called, and basically they highlighted a book called The Obstacle's the Way. Basically athletes and people who coach them go about their work by enduring impediments and hardships without feeling or complaint. They can control what they can control. I mean, we've heard the truisms, right? But they resonate. I mean, Belichick was fond of saying, we're on to Cincinnati. Max would be the first to tell you that, he takes his days one day at a time and his games one game at a time. That resilience of turning trials into triumphs is the basis for their success. So good for Raider X and for you in highlighting those important comments from Isaac. In that sense, Raider Nation, you got to feel confident in what we're doing and what we can achieve going forward. This is Raider Jim from the Pacific Northwest. Raiders all day, every day.
Raider Jim, thanks so much for the call. A lot of great nuggets there on head coach Pete Carroll and all the comments made about him from Rich Eisen. And yeah, you could definitely access all those comments on YouTube as well. And again, as I told Raider X, I'm trying to get Rich Eisen on the radio show to talk about that and give it to me firsthand. And of course, I could bring any of that to the podcast. But I absolutely believe Raider Nation should be fired up about Pete Carroll, GM John Spytek, and what they're trying to do going forward, moving together. And look, Pete Carroll, we know he's not for a long time. He's right now, right? So he's got the 3-year deal. He's got the team option. We get that. But John Spytek, the GM, he could end up being in place for a very long time. That's something to get excited about because, again, if you could build that continuity, if you can build that consistency, then all of a sudden the guys that you're cycling in and cycling out, the guys that you draft, the free agents that you have, they're all consistently the guys that you want, your type guys, and then you feel comfortable with them and you build that cupboard. That's exactly how you do it. So hopefully, both of these guys and this front office is in place for a very long time because I do think the Raiders are trending in the right direction. Thanks so much for that call. Do appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Soul Patrol. It says, Q, love your show. You're already an all-time Raider treasure. So accept this with good-willed criticism. A debate between family members regarding our prospective 2025 offense. Too much talk about skill positions. All our dominant Super Bowl teams have had dominant offensive lines. Shell, Upshaw, Hanna, Lawrence, Sims, Wisniewski, Kennedy. You know all the names. Our offensive line is mediocre. That's our next move. I'm not so arrogant to believe our current leadership has no plan in this regard. Our draft was great. I believe in our GM, coach, and staff. They deserve time and patience and belief to what they're doing. An offensive line will take time, perhaps, but no account for our 2025 offense can ring true without directly confronting our offensive line play. Our goal is offensive line dominance, not adequacy. Again, love you, Q. Thanks for giving us a voice to the fans and for always reminding us to love on our families. Soul Patrol fan forever. Pasadena, California. Soul Patrol, thanks for the text. Appreciate you. And yeah, definitely everything is on the table. And yeah, I don't even take that as criticism. I take that as fair conversation. I think we've talked a lot about the offensive line, and that's why we had the debate, as silly as it might sound at this point, between the Raiders going and getting Armand Membu at number 6 as Ashton Genty, right? I mean, that's what I kept going back and forth. Are they ready to build off of, Ashton Genty being a successful running back? Do they have the offensive line for that? So, seeing that, I sent a text to Lincoln Kennedy. I actually happened to see that text a little bit early on the day on Wednesday, and I said, you know what, let me send a text to Lincoln, see if I can get some feedback because, well, who better to ask about the offensive line than a guy that, I don't know, played it very well at a high level, and you mentioned his name in the text. Hey, and so I wrote this. Hey, man, hope all's good. Had a quick question for you. Had a listener say the Raiders offense will go as far as the offensive line takes them or allows them to go. I don't disagree with that at all. My question is, with the minor tweaks they made, a new O-line coach, and a couple draft picks, how much better can they be, and how long will it take for them to come together? So I guess that's 2 questions. LOL. Thanks, man. So Lincoln responded and said, it's a little more complicated than that. The short answer is if you solidify the starting 5 and have them play together often, then the team will win some games. If they mix and match with the lineup like in seasons past, don't play them in preseason, then their struggles will continue. They need to play together a lot. And I said, I felt like it was more complicated, but your short answer makes a lot of sense. Do you like the guys that they drafted, or is it still TBD? And he said, yes, I do. I just questioned guys from smaller schools and whether they could compete on this level. Usually they don't play against NFL caliber talent. So that was from the horse's mouth. That was from Lincoln Kennedy right there. Obviously did a fine job playing offensive tackle for the Raiders for a long time. Love him when he's on my radio show. Didn't want to, bug him with, hey, man, can you come on the show and give me 15, 20 minutes? So that's why I shot him the quick text just to follow up with Soul Patrol's text. But there you go. So, yeah, I don't think any of us are questioning the offensive line. I've asked the question many times, are they good enough to maximize Ashton Genty's ability? And if they are, then the Raiders could really be in line. But they've got to, like Lincoln said, they've got to get those 5 guys, whoever those guys are going to be, and get that solidified immediately, play in the preseason, and know week 1, not week 4. Don't treat the first 4 games like preseason. Know week 1 who your starting 5 is going to be, and having them gel by playing in the preseason as well is a very, very good point by Lincoln. So thanks so much, Soul Patrol. Appreciate the text. Really good stuff. Up next, got a call from Army Raider. He's calling to talk about the Josh Jacobs interview on Bussin' with the Boys with Will Compton and Taylor Lewan. Here's Army Raider.
What's up, Q? It's your boy, Army Raider. I was just calling to tell people, you, everybody else, if you haven't listened to the Josh Jacobs interview on the Bussin' with the Boys podcast with Taylor Lewan and Will Compton, y'all need to do that. It's by far the best interview I've ever heard him give. He goes into more detail. And I know he's been a topic because he did one other interview recently. This one is a lot better. But what's wild about it to me is comparing it to now, it shows, if you listen to this interview, especially on the back end, how dysfunctional the Raiders organization was before we brought in Spytek and Pete Carroll. I mean, he talks about how he loves Mark Davis, but that the rest of the people and the stories he gives, my goodness, I think it's worse than any of us actually thought it was. So I'd love to get your thoughts on it if you listen to it. If not, do it. Army Raider out.
Army Raider, thanks so much for the call. I appreciate you. I haven't heard the whole interview. Now, I have heard parts of it. I heard the parts where he felt like he was really disrespected. He was being treated like a rookie, which is exactly the same thing he told me in New Orleans when we were preparing for Super Bowl 59, when I had a really good sit down with him, probably 10 to 12 minutes. And I put that interview on the podcast. But yeah, that was basically what he said there. Also, I heard the part on the Bustin' with the Boys podcast where he was talking about sitting in the parking lot with Max Crosby and, talking to the GM at the time, who was Dave Ziegler, about the contract and the negotiations that they were going through. And the fact that the whole phone thing, and there was a local media member apparently on the phone, and the phone was being waved, and he saw it. Max saw it as well. I'll tell you one thing. I don't know who he was on the phone with. He went on the phone with me. That's for sure. So I feel like the major dysfunction that you're talking about was truly a dysfunction from Josh Jacobs' point of view with that staff, with Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels, just the way that they went and handled things, the way that they handled talking to the media, the way that they would leak information to certain members of the media so they can get their message out, their narrative out, which, look, all GMs, they do that. They all have somebody that they reach out to. I'm never that guy. Ever at all. Dave Ziegler has reached out to me in the past, but it was never to pass a message on about a certain, what they wanted to get out there, right? The only time that we really communicated while he was still the GM, one, we would talk about when I was filling in on Freddie and Fitzsimmons on ESPN Radio, because he's a big fan of that show. So that's actually how we first even came in contact with each other. But when the Jimmy G situation popped up, when he was at practice and he left practice, I reached out to him, was like, hey, is this part of the plan? He's like, yeah, and didn't mind that being on the record. He's reached out a few other times that just, say, like, he would hear me on the radio and he would say, oh, that's accurate, or that's not accurate, or that guy, that insider doesn't have any idea. Like, Jordan Schultz is off on that conversation. I think it was about Hunter Renfrow. It was just stuff like that, but it was never a situation, like Josh was describing in the parking lot. So I don't know who that was. I mean, there's certain insiders that are local media that have way more access than I do. So, I mean, you could probably guess on who, and probably be pretty close on who it might be, but I don't know, and I don't know for sure, so I'm not going to sit there and throw some names out there and be like, yep, it was this guy, because honestly, I don't know. But thanks so much for that call. Definitely appreciate you. Got another call. We'll take this one from OG Raider in the 801. He's calling to talk about his expectations for the Raiders, offensive coordinator Chip Kelly, and the Raiders wide receivers that they have. OG has some thoughts. Here he is, OG Raider in the 801.
Hey, Q, this is your boy, OG Raider from the 801. Hey, man, I was just listening to your podcast, and You were talking about Chip Kelly as being the best offensive coordinator since Hugh. Well, I'd say he's a little bit better. I'd say this is the best coaching staff they've had since 2000. And John Gruden and his staff, they were really good, but I think this staff's even better than them. You think it's 8 wins is a good scenario? I think, not only do I think they're going to win a little bit more, I think they're going to come second in our division, right behind the Chargers. Then the Broncos, Chiefs are going to come up last because Mahomes, he's not going to get all those favorable calls from the refs like he did last year, because everybody knows that the refs gave him all those favorable calls, and that's why he won as many games as he did. Otherwise, they wouldn't even have made the playoffs, and everybody knows it. So, as far as that goes, that's great. As far as our wide receiving core, I've been watching a lot of highlights on our boys in there, and I'll tell you what, I have got some really high hopes for this receiving core. Not only the receiving core, but the running game, the defense. I think this is going to be the best Raiders team since 2000. Let me know what you think. As always, shout out to you and Ari for all you do and giving us all that information that we like every week. And Raider Nation for life. Go Raiders.
OG, thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. 8 wins feels good to me, right? Anything more is awesome. Obviously, it's welcomed. I hope that they win more than 8 games, but, you know, other teams, especially in the division, are going to have something to say about that, right? Everything has got to go the right way for the Raiders to be able to do that. As we were talking about the Raiders and their offense in segment number 2, you know, what Pro Football Focus was saying, the Raiders offense is going to be a lot of fun. Right? They still might end up 4th in the division, but it's going to be a lot of fun. The team is going to be fun to watch. This team has just got to build everything up. It's not going to happen overnight. They're not all of a sudden going to go win the division overnight, go to the Super Bowl like that. But, you know, even like Shereen Williams said, and it was on the podcast just the other day, you know, talking about this team is going to contend for a title in 2 to 3 years. I don't want to get that far ahead of myself. I'd like to see it start to be built and then could confidently say, hey, like, man, this is the year. This is the Raiders' year. But I'm not at that point yet. Again, if things go their way, right, especially if they gel with that offensive line early and that offense is clicking like we've been talking about, there's a great chance, right? And Chip Kelly very well could be a better offensive coordinator than Hugh Jackson. I just know that when Hugh was with the Raiders, he made guys that weren't household names, he made them look really good. And when he wasn't there anymore or they were gone from the Raiders, they didn't last in the league very long. Right? They were out of there pretty quickly. So that's why I gave Hugh a lot of credit. But thanks so much for that call. Appreciate you. We'll take one more call. This one's from Raider Dougie. He's doing the Dougie in Central Cali. He's calling to talk about Tom Brady and the fact that he wasn't involved in the quarterback process. At least that's what the reports say. Here's Raider Dougie in Central Cali.
Hey, Q. This is Raider Dougie in Central California. Love the show, Q. Keep what you're doing, man, and you know, thank you for always providing this content. I appreciate it. I wanted to chime in on something that came out, you know, yesterday about Tom Brady in that interview about staying away from the quarterback decision. I'm not sure, you know, if he's telling the truth or not, but to me, I remember hearing, you know, from Mark Davis as well as other content or reporters that Tom Brady was going to be involved in that quarterback decision. And to say that he wasn't, to me, kind of, you know, rubs me the wrong way a little bit, because my thought was, okay, the Raiders didn't take Shedeur Sanders because Tom Brady was not a Shedeur Sanders fan, and he would know better than most, being that he is the person that, you know, was training him and working with him closely than maybe some other, you know, people. So if he wasn't okay with drafting him, then, you know, that was good enough for me. But to not even be involved just kind of makes me feel like, you know, well, then I'm not saying what's the point, but I thought him being involved was going to, you know, give us an option at quarterback in the draft and evaluate them. So I don't know. I just, hopefully, if Shador or Jalen Milroe end up being something, I'm like kind of upset that we didn't take somebody now, because I thought maybe Tom Brady did his due diligence with the evaluation of these guys. But if he didn't, then now I have a lot of questions now, because I thought that was supposed to be the best part about having Tom Brady is his quarterback evaluation. So anyway, Q, have a good one. That's it.
Dougie, thanks so much. Appreciate you. And to be honest, I'm not really buying that he wasn't involved in the Raiders quarterback process. I'm not really buying that. I think he was saying that to save himself from answering the question about Shador, because the whole process of the draft leading up to it, we had heard that he was going to be involved in the quarterback market for the Raiders. Mark Davis, the owner, has said that he wanted Tom Brady to find him their next quarterback. He wants him heavily involved. Tom Brady took a step back, and I really feel like that's because of the connection that he has with Shador, the connection that he has with Dion, and the fact that the Raiders didn't draft him. As a matter of fact, the sound that you're talking about him saying he wasn't involved, he was a guest on the Logan Paul podcast, and he was asked straight up about Shador. I'm going to play the sound for you, but I want you to just listen to the question that's asked to him and look and count on your hands or in your, whatever the case may be, how many seconds before he actually starts to address the answer. Check it out.
We're talking about going late in the draft. Elephant in the room, Shador Sanders. What happened, Tom? Why did he go so late in the draft?
I mean, it's a good question. I wasn't a part of any evaluation process. I actually texted Shador because I know him very well. And I said, dude, like, whatever happens, wherever you go, like, that's your first day. Day 2 matters more than the draft. I was 199.
Yeah.
So who could speak on it better than me? Like, what that really means. Yeah. Use it as motivation. You're going to get your chances. Go take advantage of it.
All right, so there you go. Why did Shador drop? And Tom Brady danced around that 5 seconds before he said, that's a great question. Now, first of all, let me tell you something from this side of the business, right? Because I do a lot of interviews, as you know. I do a lot of interviews of interviewing guests. I've been interviewed many times. Whenever a guest says, oh, that's a great question, that's because we hadn't thought of an answer for that. That wasn't something that we had thought about, like this is going to be a question that I better ask. I better have an answer for this, right? A lot of times I'll go into an interview like, oh, hey, they're going to ask about the Raiders draft. Okay, I've got an answer for everything you can ask me about the Raiders draft. I haven't. There's not one part where I'm going to say that's a great question, right? And which is funny because he should have known going into that he was going to be asked about Shador. But you see how he danced with it? To me, it feels like he was trying to separate himself. So Shador, as he mentioned, he's really good friends with him. He's really good friends with Dion. He texted him, said, don't worry about it. He automatically goes from, why did Shador slide, which was the question. He never answered that. He said he didn't have nothing to do with that. He didn't ask how much you had to do with it and why the Raiders didn't draft him. He just said, why did Shador slide? And Brady all of a sudden went into, I didn't have anything to do with the process. Right? I went 199. So, hey, if anyone knows about going on day 3, it's me. Right? I mean, he automatically went into him, almost like defense mechanism. So that's why I say, if I was in a barbershop right now, I'd tell my barber, ring the bell on him, because I'm not buying what he's selling on that one. I'm just not. And I think that it's smart. He's part owner, right? He doesn't want to get out there and make himself look bad for not having the Raiders draft Shador or whatever the case may be. And he probably doesn't want to dog the kid either. And he might just think that, hey, man, you're just not that great. You're not the quarterback that this team needs. Or, I'm not surprised because you weren't as good as a lot of people thought you were. Like, I don't doubt him. And I'm not surprised that he didn't come out and say that. But it's just that pause at the beginning, the way he danced, kind of lets you know that, yeah, how am I going to answer this? Wait, hold on. Okay, 5 seconds. 5 seconds. He should have known that question was coming. But we'll close out with that right there. That'll be the way we drop the mic on today's show. Coming up tomorrow, you'll hear the conversation I had with Max Toscano talking about the Raiders offense. We'll kind of finish this bad boy off, talking all things offense tomorrow. You get more news and notes and, of course, calls and texts as well as we close out the week really strong. So until then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.